Well, yet again, here I am, and this is St. Patrick's Day, the 16th of March. As you might be able to tell from my green shirt, I'm all ready to go. I have a St. Patrick's Day dinner to go to tonight, so right now it's about 1:45 on Wednesday the 16th. This will be broadcast on the 20th, which is Sunday, at the usual time, 9 p.m., midnight on the East Coast. So here we go. Play in music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, as the intro music said, the views of the Midnight Skeptic, well, while the right and proper views that all people should have are not necessarily the views of Petaluma Community Access or its affiliates. And be sure to send all hate mail and death threats and also compliments if you have any. Topics that you might like to hear me rant about. Send it all to the Midnight Skeptic at gmail.com. No, I'm sorry. The Midnight Skeptic at, gmail.com. Man, I got to look closely at my notes here. Okay, shout outs. My international people on anchor.fm, which they get it mainly on Spotify. I got a couple in New Zealand, a couple in Australia, the UK, two in Ireland, happy St. Patrick's Day, and one in the Czech Republic. And I hope the people in the Czech Republic are going out of their way to help all of these refugees from Ukraine. Okay, shout-outs continued. Shannon Reed in Arkansas, out on Long Island, Geraldine Goldfinger, and down in Florida, Amelia Beamer and Nelson and Alice, and then over to Arizona, my brother Brandon and his wife Mina and their daughter Andrea, who's a nurse, and her husband Tim, Booyah, retired from the United States Marine Corps, and their three little terrorists. And down in Patagonia, Arizona, I think I forgot to mention her last week, Karina Hilliard, studying herpetology, and she's an animal control officer down there in Patagonia. In case you have a snake curled up in your kitchen, she'll get rid of it for you. Okay, over to L.A., Jackie and Wayne Kolar, and then up to Pacifica, Stan and Kathy Gustafson, and further north, Sebastopol, Rich and Kathy Berger. I'll be seeing you guys next week, I hope, for a brew. Over to Sacramento, Dave and Rosita Takach, and then Mickey Huff, the godfather of Project Censored, and he's on KPCA LP. His program was yesterday, Wednesday, from 1 to 2, 103.3 FM. And then, but it's repeated on KPFA over in Berkeley, 94.1 on Friday from 1 to 2. Okay, listen to him. He's got, he's a very intelligent guy. He has good guests, and once a year he and a co-author come out with Project Censored, whatever the year is. This coming one will be Project Censored 2022. So There's plenty of material for filling up that book. Look for it at your bookstores. Okay, up to Sonora. Bob and Sandy Fisher, Brad and Martha Fisher. Martha, who is a nurse, wear your PPE. We're not through with this COVID thing yet. Darrell Larson, Judy May, and Leonidas Maciel, and then Kathy Francis. And then from Sonora, but all the way down in Mexico City now, is Rosie Lopez Negrete. Okay, locally, Nariman and Tim Conrad, good photographer. Kevin and Lori up in Cotati, and then Yvonne Santos, who listens in now and then. She's down in San Francisco. All right. Quick break, and gotta sip my coffee. This is coffee. I need my caffeine this morning. Okay, horrible news. Okay, I admonish everybody who listens to this show and across the nation, don't let Republican legislators write bills controlling women's bodies. They are just too ignorant, and everything they propose is to appeal to their equally ignorant base. I've called them this before, the MAGA heads, the Trump cultists, conservatives as defined now, not classical conservatives, which are, they have actual political opinions about the national debt and free enterprise or size of government. Those conservatives have gone by the wayside. Conservatives now are just Trump cultists. And I apologize for using the T word. I should have said the orange sociopathic bloat bag. Okay, now to illustrate what I'm ranting about now, Missouri House Bill 2810, introduced by anti-abortion zealot Brian Seitz, capital S-E-I-T-Z. It contains Section A3 in this bill that treating a woman, by medical people, who is having an ectopic pregnancy is a felony. How could that possibly be? Ignorance knows no bounds, and Republicans have a what's the word I'm looking for? I'm having a brain freeze again. Okay, never mind. They have a lot of it. Okay, Representative Seitz even admits he doesn't understand ectopic pregnancy. Yet, this bill, hopefully it'll be voted down by by Democrats, and then a few Republicans who are aware what a ectopic pregnancy is. But just to let you know that this isn't confined to Missouri only, Ohio Republicans, who are equally as ignorant, have introduced a bill to require doctors who treat a woman having an ectopic pregnancy to re-implant the fetus that are developing in the fallopian tubes outside the woman's uterus. And this is medically impossible. I mean, you can do it, but the fetus isn't going to be viable. But this goes to show you how the so-called pro-life zealots are just ignorant and care more about little blastocysts than they do real live human beings who might need some government help or assistance. Oh, boy. A medically impossible procedure, or face charges of, and this is a quote from the bill, abortion murder. Okay, please, governments across the nation, state governments, don't let Republicans write medical care bills for women, or for that matter, for anybody else. They're just too ignorant. Okay, here's an update from the Texas dystopia. Adeline Vigil, capital Vigil, that's her last name. She's age 13, has had panic attacks since Governor Greg Abbott ordered state child welfare officials to launch child abuse investigations into reports of transgender kids receiving gender-affirming care of any kind. The Rio Grande Valley girl is now second-guessing whether to continue receiving such care. And this is a quote from her. "The thought of me being separated from her mother makes me cry, and to think my mom could go to jail for it and not being able to see her anymore," Adeline said Sunday. And her first name is spelled capital Adelyn. I guess it's Adeline. Okay, anyway, she said this on Sunday, which is the 6th of March of this year. And this is from an article in the Texas Tribune. And the reporter who wrote the article, Veronica G. Cardenas. Okay, Adeline, who stands tall at 5 feet 5 inches and is outspoken in her class, well, good for her, has been having panic attacks in school as she approached puberty. After she started seeing the doctors in North Dallas, the attacks stopped because, doctors, almost all of them, are knowledgeable and compassionate, the very opposite of what Republican politicians are. Anyway, after she started seeing the doctors, North Dallas, okay, I'm riffing, I'm off my notes again. The panic attacks started again when Governor Greg Abbott ordered the state child welfare officials to launch abuse investigations into reports of transgender kids receiving gender-affirming care. Adeline is terrified she will be forcefully separated from her mother. The Vigil family agreed to speak with the Texas Tribune, but not to disclose Adeline's medical treatment, either the type of treatment or the doctors who are providing it. Without going into it, I would imagine that if she's undergoing treatment, the first treatment is probably with a psychologist who is up on transgender kids. Okay, if it's determined that puberty blockers would be appropriate for her, which are reversible, incidentally. You'd never know that listening to Republicans. Another sip of coffee. All right. Under the mouth is not working quite properly, as you've probably realized. Okay, here we go again. Under the gender affirming model of care, medical experts say more time is spent allowing kids to socially transition instead of focusing on medical treatment. Yes, that's always the first step in the transitioning model. You make sure, okay, psychologists, child psychologists, or teen psychologists determine how persistent this desire is to transition. And the people who are just anti-trans say, well, it's just a phase, they go back. Well, some of them do. And it's called desistance as opposed to persistence. Okay, I'm off my notes again. 40% of transgender youth attempt suicide, 3 times higher rate than among cisgender youth. Okay, cisgender, in case you don't know, that your mental state, the way you feel about yourself is aligned with your birth sex. I'm cisgender. I'm a cisgender male. I was born with a pee-pee between my legs, and I've thought of myself as a guy for my entire life, for better or for worse. Okay. I'm off my notes again. In his statement this week, Abbott the creep, called on other Texans to act as watchdogs and report any parent for abuse if they believe the parent is supportive of their transgender kid and sneaking them in to see a doctor. Big Brother Texans are watching you. That's why I use the term Texas dystopia. I mean, it is. You got to look over your shoulder. Is my neighbor going to turn me in to the Texas transgender police? Okay. All right, continuing in this vein, on Thursday, which was 3/10/22, district attorneys from 5 Texas counties, including Dallas, Bexar, Harris, and Travis, via Twitter said they would not prosecute gender-affirming actions as abuse. Well, good for them. Those guys probably are Democrats. I don't know for sure. Harris County DA Kim Ogg, Kim, it's her first name, OGG, said she would not prosecute, quote, any parent, any facility, or anyone else seeking the care their children need. How did this progressive DA surface in Texas? Okay. As a member of the LGBTQ community myself, this is Kim Ogg, I am particularly sensitive to the invidious nature of Abbott's order. And she goes on, quote, it is a remnant of a hateful past that I had hoped our society had matured beyond. Well, sorry to say, Kim Ogg, I'm 100% in agreement with you, but the state you live in has to get rid of all these Republicans in government, in Texas government, for your hopes to come true. Okay, another sip of coffee here. All right. Okay. In one well-known example, Department of Family Protection Services investigation into the investigated into the family of a transgender trial over the use of gender affirming therapy. And I'm not sure whether it's psychotherapy or hormonal therapy. I'm not sure. A bitter custody battle fueled by the blogger father. This is how he's described. I don't know what he actually does. I guess maybe he's well known in blogger circles. Okay, the blogger father of a 7-year-old girl who was assigned male at birth in 2019. Abbott and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who is a felon, by the way. Okay. Oh boy, my handwriting striked again. Okay, let me start over this. This is a custody battle. The blogger father, the mother, provided her child, who was male at birth in 2019. Abbott and Texas AG Paxton demonstrated that the Texas Child Welfare Agency investigate whether the mother was committing abuse by letting the child present as a girl. And that is what social transitioning refers to. Presenting as a girl. Okay, the little boy apparently let his hair grow long, perhaps wore a touch of lipstick or something, and maybe wore clothes that could be classified as girl type clothes. That is presenting as a girl. Okay, this is all before any puberty blockers or any other kind of hormonal therapy is administered. At the time, which is before the current anti-trans law went into effect, the move alarmed an already fearful community of parents of transgender children. In that case, in which no surgical or hormonal procedures were used, child welfare officials ruled out child abuse and closed the investigation. The father, okay, here's his name, Jeff Younger, Younger, lost custody of his 2 children in the divorce proceedings. Okay, now get this. He is now running for the Republican nomination for the Texas House of Representatives in the Flower Mound district. Typical Republican. Okay. Oh, boy. Texas. And Florida. Okay, here's a little bit about words and phrases that are given to Republicans by ultra-conservative right-wing think tanks to use when they're discussing social issues. Given to Republican politicians for them to use to gin up fear in their ignorant base. Fear and anger is what the Republican base is all about. Okay, first term, equity. You hear this all the time, and it makes Republican base angry. We don't want equity. Okay, what equity is each person has different circumstances that brought them to wherever they are in their lives. And they should get resources, which means some help, monetary health, extra education help, to get an equal outcome with everybody else. Now, that equal outcome thing really makes Republicans angry. It won't always happen because individual people have individual abilities, individual intelligence, individual drive for success, whatever that truly means. But every time the word equity is mentioned in a Republican orange sociopathic bloat bag rally, it just sets off a chorus of boos. Time check. Okay. I'm going to have to do a lot of riffing here. Apologies. My real notes have ran out here. Okay, CRT. Okay. I did half a show on this topic about 3 or 4 months ago. And I haven't written down the guy's name, but he was up in Seattle, and he's part of a small think tank up there, a Republican think tank. And he ran across this term, which it stands for critical race theory. And I'm not going to go into the whole history of critical race theory again, but just it dates back to the turn of the century, meaning the last century, not this century. It's a Marxian term, Marxian economic term, critical theory. It studies how certain economic advantages for certain groups of people are built into our system. Well, what system? Our economic, legal, social system. Now, back then, it wasn't applied to race. Moving ahead to the Great Depression, it began to be applied to classes, the lower class, the bourgeoisie, the upper 1%, and it was during the Franklin Roosevelt era where he and Democrats were pushing laws that would bring us out of the Depression. The WPA, the CCC, Social Security, all of those things. And so in a way, it became critical class theory. Okay, cut ahead another couple of decades, and we come to first wave feminism and then second wave feminism in the 1950s and 60s, where women were getting back into the workforce, and the roles of men and women were changing, and conservative Republicans were panicked about this. Well, okay. And the cards were stacked against women as far as making as much as men made for the same type of work, and getting promoted as they should be based on their talents and abilities, They just weren't getting it because they were women. Okay. So at that point, you could call CFT, I guess, critical feminist theory. I've never heard that term, but that was another critical theory applied to women at that time. Okay, cut ahead. Again, a couple of decades to the 90s. And, well, actually, CRT came into existence as a pejorative used by Republicans after the turn of the century in the 2000s and 2010s. Again, I will do a refresher segment on CRT in an upcoming show. I can't remember the exact date when this DOUCHEBAG up in Seattle decided that CRT was a way to jack up the fear quotient in the orange sociopathic bloat bag's base. And they existed before the orange sociopathic bloat bag actually came on the scene, unfortunately. You remember in the Obama administration, the Tea Party patriots, those people, they're essentially the orange sociopathic bloat bag's base, who are looking for things to fear and get angry about. Excuse me, I need another sip of coffee. Okay, now the term CRT is any talking about discussion in classrooms about injustices in this country applied to blacks. And for that matter, it should be applied also to brown-skinned people, meaning Latinos and Native Americans, and AAPI. I guess that's the current designation for Asians. Okay. Another term, inclusiveness. Okay. And that riles up Republicans. Treating many types of people equally. Well, we don't want that. Okay. Social engineering. Okay, now I had a discussion at a group that I go to once a week. It's a coffee social, but I've kind of jokingly referred to it as coffee and socialism. Anyway, there's a pastor who's a really nice guy. I guess his congregation is basically a Baptist, not a Southern Baptist, but an independent Baptist. But he's a very well-educated guy and very nice. I don't think he's a Republican. I think he's an independent. He certainly wouldn't be, I don't think he would be a Democrat. But we were talking about the Florida Don't Say Gay bill. And he brought it up and said, well, there's nothing in that bill that says don't say gay. Well, of course not. It's the don't say gay thing was a phrase made up by Democrats who don't like the bill to make it sound worse than it already is. Okay, no, it does not say that. So I've done a segment on my show about the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida. And I will read exactly Section 3 of the Parental Rights in Education bill. Excuse me. Okay, classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in K through third grade or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. Okay, there are no state standards for age appropriate anything in Florida. Uh, okay, and this word or, okay, so may not occur in K through third grade or in a manner that is not age appropriate. Okay, who gets to decide what is age appropriate or not? Well, I hope it's not Republicans, although I think it is. Excuse me, I get a feedback in these headphones. So why am I wearing them all the time? Well, okay. This could be applied all the way up to grade 12, seniors in high school, according to the wording of this bill. Okay, so our discussion, me with this pastor, proceeded to talk about topics that are best left to parents. Okay, and his own young kids, they're going to private school. I don't know whether it's a private religious school of some sort, but he seems to be a bit down on public schools. Now, public schools going way back into colonial times and after the United States became the United States, after the Revolutionary War, public schools were supposedly in place to inculcate in our youth, and at that time, seventh and eighth grade was about as far as you could go, inculcate in our youth the values of this newly emerged United States of America nation. Okay, the really well-educated went to colleges that basically were to provide religious pastors and guiding our citizens in a appropriate religious area. In other words, they were educating pastors for the most part. Okay. Anyway, cut ahead here. Topics that were best left to parents, not sexuality discussion, and why not? What is it about sexuality that sets it apart from other topics in life? I don't see that sexuality is so much of a holy topic that only parents can inculcate their values into their kids. I don't think that there's any teachers of K through 3 or even above that that are trying to turn their kindergarten through third grade students into sexual beings. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what grade it is that you get the sperm fertilizes the egg lesson, but I think sexuality in an age-appropriate manner should be talked about throughout school. And there are a few kids, and it's a tiny minority, who are suffering from gender dysphoria, that it should be brought to the attention of other kids that, so-and-so, little Tony, likes to let his hair grow long and wear more feminine clothing or act in a more feminine way or play games that are more associated with girls. That should be explained to the K through 3 as a way to cut down on bullying. Well, Republicans would never go through that. If they're bullies, that's their whole ethos, is to pick on minorities. Okay? Am I being too harsh on Republicans? I probably am. But the handful of compassionate, accepting, inclusive Republicans aren't powerful enough within the Republican Party to change the whole ethos of discriminatory bullying laws that they try to pass. Okay. Most teachers, and not all, there are a handful of them that probably shouldn't have become teachers. They know what is age appropriate and how to present certain topics to their kids. Okay. Where did I get off the track here? Okay. Oh, I got talking about social engineering. Okay. If that term is mentioned to a group of Republicans, social engineering, I don't want my kid being in a class where there's social engineering going on. Well, I said this on the last show when the topic of social engineering came up. And it's my contention that if young kids in elementary school are taught to be kind, to be accepting of all sorts of different people, and to not be bullies, and to have an appreciation of different cultures, kids who might speak a different language, or eat different kinds of food, or dress a little bit differently, then if those lessons are really taken hold of by these kids in the class, none of them would grow up to be Republicans. And when I said this on last week's show, I was sort of being facetious, but not really. Kids who are kind and gentle and accepting and not bullies they're not going to grow up to be Republicans. So in a way, that is social engineering. Okay. Woke. Okay, I did a segment on my show about 6 months ago on the term woke. And I'll just really remind you of where I heard it first. It was an interview with the black folk singer Leadbelly, and he sang a song about the Jonesboro boys who were jailed for allegedly raping a white girl. And they didn't, of course, but this was down in Mississippi. And in the interview, after he sang this song that he wrote about the Jonesboro Boys, the interviewer let him speak about their plight in Mississippi. And he said, those black boys best stay woke, meaning don't say anything or do anything that will alert the authorities, meaning the local sheriff, and draw their attention to you. Okay, well, that was back in 1938 when he came up with this song. Okay, now the term woke, and I'm going to research what hideous Republican think tank person came up with woke as a pejorative term, meaning to be aware of social justice issues. And it's used by the GOP now to mean over-righteous liberalism. Okay. Another time check. Okay, little bit of time left. Okay, the word mandates. Okay, it's just an English word that means governmental requirements. And I've often joked, sometimes on this show, that mask mandates or COVID-19 vaccination mandates, they should replace the word mandates with requirements. The MAGA head Trump cultist conservatives are just too stupid to realize that they mean the same thing. And well, if it's a requirement to get a shot, okay, but I don't want any mandates. Okay, the word mandate has become another boo term at orange sociopathic bloat bag rallies. Okay, you people out there remember caravans? That was also a fear and anger term used to mean people coming up from El Salvador and Guatemala and Nicaragua to invade our country. Those are the people we have to protect our country from, and we've got to build a wall to keep them out. Build the wall thing was used to scam the orange sociopathic bloat bag's followers out of more money. And I'm having a brain freeze on the guy's name. This advisor to the orange sociopathic bloat bag, who looks like a hobo who crawled out from under a railroad trestle in Barstow. Damn, I'm sorry, but I think you know who I mean. Anyway, he started this quote-unquote nonprofit to raise money to finish building the orange sociopathic bloat bag's wall. Okay, well, all he was doing was spending the money himself, and he was charged with fraud. Okay, now that is pending. In addition to his refusing to testify before the January 6th House of Representatives investigating committee of the January 6th insurrection. Oh, God, what's that guy's name? I can picture him easier than I can remember his name, so forgive me. Okay. the vagaries of getting a bit older. Not that I'm old, mind you. Okay. All right. So mandates, caravans, and we don't hear about caravans anymore, but there's still people coming up from Central America. I guess they're just walking or whatever. Okay. And the last term that's used to gin up fear and anger in the Republican base is parental rights. Okay. And this encompasses Republican book banning and in some cases burning. Okay. Parents should determine what books are read in our classrooms, especially our grammar school classrooms. I read I read the whole children's book called Ruby Bridges. And that's one of the books that's been banned in certain Republican school districts. There's a whole list of them. This Republican politician, I forget what his name is, but he came up with 850 book titles that he sent this list to all Texas school districts and for review. Pull them off the shelves for review. Now, for review means pulling them off because he doesn't think they're appropriate. Okay. And the types of books are talking about racial injustice, about sexuality, about gender identity. Genderqueer is one of them that is universally banned in all Republican-controlled states. Oh, boy. I've talked about genderqueer before. It's a graphic novel by Maya Kobabe, Kobabe. And get this book. It's a very heart-wrenching parts of it. Heart-wrenching graphic novel about this girl, Maya Kobabe. It's a memoir. It's her memoir about her growing up in Sonoma County. In fact, she went to Petaluma High School here. She's 31 now. And, the trials and tribulations of just a teenager growing up. Not only that, but a teenager growing up not quite aligning with her birth sex. Okay. Anyway. Okay, I want to... Here's a list of right-wing think tanks, and they have people, conservatives, working at these think tanks whose sole job is to read and research and come up with terms that Republican politicians can use when they're talking to their base and ginning up fear and anger in the MAGA Head base. Okay, the worst of the worst is the Heritage Foundation. They are number one on this list of right-wing think tanks. Excuse me, another time check. Okay. The American Enterprise Institute, AEI, it was founded in 1938, and they stress capitalism, limited government, individual freedom and liberty, and national defense. Okay, there's nothing inherently wrong with any of those thoughts, but this individual freedom thing can easily bleed over into parental rights and woke and mandates and social engineering, all of which they're against. Okay. The Cato Institute. Again, limited government, individual liberty, and the free markets. All of these are what classical conservatives would be for, which is okay. Classical conservatives is just another political point of view. Nowadays, since the rise of the cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag, and they've all become MAGA heads, it's warped. Conservatism has lost its real meaning. Okay, the Hoover Institution, founded in 1919 by Herbert Hoover at Stanford. That's just down the road. Private enterprise and personal freedom, again. And then the last on my list, the Manhattan Institute. Basically, it's just free market is what they advocate. Excuse me. Okay, I got to play my out music. Okay, that's the end of this rant and rave session. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, I hit it this time. This is 57 minutes and 50 seconds. So KPCA is going to cut me off at 58 minutes for the radio broadcast. And for my Facebook, not Facebook, YouTube. For my YouTube followers, I got to wave goodbye and assure you that I'm going to talk about more about woke, where that term came from, at least how it got to be used as a pejorative when Republicans are ranting and raving. Okay. And by the time I do this again, I will have talked again with this Baptist pastor who is a good one, as opposed to the Southern Baptists, which are just vomit-inducing. Okay. All right. Goodbye.